day in the pub, Seb and Verity were socialising with hilarity.
They knew there and then that their options were vast. They bought some equipment and made a podcast.
What do you think you are doing, you twits? It's cliched and obvious, you know.
If this doesn't work, well then we'll call it quits. But right now just listen to our show.
It's called Three in a Bar.
We'll talk to musicians about their lives so far.
Three in a bar. We hope that you like it, okay? Hooray!
Hello.
Hello!
Welcome to 3 in a Bar. I'm Seb Philpott.
And I'm Verity Simmons, and this is episode 7. Woohoo!
Yes, episode 7 of our podcast. This is the podcast where we interview a different musician every week and see what we chat about. It's always something slightly different. Could be in depth about their career. We could talk about their process, how they write their music or how they play their instruments.
Yeah.
Or it could just be a chat about absolute bollocks.
And often a combination of all of the above.
Yeah.
So we've got a belter this week, haven't we?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Shall I see who's in the draw? Oh my God. Oh yes, that's right. I remember now. It is writer, composer, actor and comedian Vikki Stone.
There she is. I love it. Her
Come out, Vikki.
the tagline on her personal page is that she is the bastard love child of Victoria Wood and Tim Minchin. And what an explanation. I like that.
Yeah. No, she's very good. Yeah. She began life. She began life like as everyone began life, I guess. But
We're going right back.
She very much, I think, in terms of her artistic career, began life as a flute player at as a child, and that was sort of the path she was going down, doing music. But then she sort of moved into different avenues. Well, she started off doing lots of stand-up comedy, musical comedy, and then now she's writing musicals.
Yeah,
but she's very much forging her own career.
Yes. So you may well have seen her on TV. She's been on loads of things. She was on the John Bishop Show. She's been on This Morning. Excellent. And she's been on the Now Show. She's written 2 classical works. One of them was a concerto for comedian and orchestra, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And her latest work is a musical called Zoological Society, which is a musical and a concept album. And one of her songs, Marvin, from the album, was actually shortlisted for 2019 Styles and Drew Prize for Best New Song. So it's already doing great things.
Yeah, it's a brilliant album. I urge you all to listen to it, but not before you've listened to our conversation with Vikki Stone. I literally just watched your whole Facebook live video from the other night, so it's like I'm interacting with that video because it's like the same.
It's the same place.
Camera angle. It's exactly the same place.
This is where I work now. This is where I live.
Oh God, yeah.
Don't get to leave my house. Everything occurs in this attic.
I know. It's like you guys just got set up in your new sort of house.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did in lockdown was decorate this attic. I sort of figured that I think I might be here for a while. So before I did any writing, I wasn't ready to write either. Before I did anything creative, I was like, right, this attic's getting painted. And it's quite nice.
Are you doing lots of projects at the moment? Are you feeling creative and inspired?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's taken a long time to get there. I think the first few weeks, like everybody else in the arts, has been scrabbling around trying to, I've pitched for all sorts of things. Like most organisations have got a little bit of money to do something. And so I've pitched for so much stuff. I haven't really written anything that's not been a pitch in a while. But actually, this last week has been a big mixture of getting no's from a load of things and then getting a couple of yeses. So,
Brilliant. Hooray.
So I'm working on something at the moment.
Something secret. Or
No,
something
I don't
you
think
can
it's
talk about?
secret. I don't know. I've not signed an NDA. So I just talk about it. I'm writing a little, between the programmes on BBC One, you get those, they're called idents, and you get like canoers or the people in the sea. Now they've...
disabled basketball players.
Yes.
Now they've commissioned a new set that are social distancing, because obviously those messages don't reflect what's going on.
Yeah.
And so... I've got a little choir that I direct, and we're managing to still keep going, actually. So we've been still rehearsing once a week on Zoom, and via various channels. BBC have approached me and them, and I've written a little 30-second micro piece that they're singing, recording it tomorrow. So that's what I've been literally doing today. I've been putting the finishing touches to this 30-second micro piece, which is nice.
That's right. Did they give you guidelines for that? Did you have did they ask for anything specific, or?
Yeah, there's very specific things, like we've got to meet everyone on screen within 8 seconds, and they wanted it to build. So they wanted it to go sort of, it's going basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. So it's literally 2 seconds for each part to join. And you've got 8 seconds. You've got 8 seconds to get everyone on screen. And then you've got another, I think it's 7 seconds of music that we'll hear alone. And then the rest of it gets ducked under continuity and under voiceover. So the piece can keep building, but it has to be able to be ducked under voiceover.
When you've got a brief so clear as that and kind of restricted, does that help you just quickly write something when you've got?
Yeah, I think it does.
Not much room to play around with it.
Yeah,
really.
and also the people in this choir, they're not professionals. That's the idea of these BBC things. It's about it's about ordinary people, and they are obviously it's run by me, and I'm a professional musician of sorts, so it's got to be sung in isolation by people that aren't pros. So that is quite limiting as well. It's not limiting, but it means that I have to think that I have to make sure that it's going to be achievable as well. So that everyone can record their parts in isolation. And I think there's lots of that going on, like musicians recording these in isolation. Yeah. And I think professionals can manage it. But yeah, so I've had to have that in mind. And I think it's simpler as a little piece than it would be if I was having it recorded by pros. Yeah. But that said, I think that often simple things for things like this are better anyway.
And are your choir, are they up for it? Are they daunted, or are they quite...
Oh God, they're totally up for it. They were on they've done a bit of telly, actually. They were on They were on an ill-fated BBC series called Pitch Battle a number of years ago, which was a sort of X Factor for choirs. Yeah. And they loved that. I think for many of them in it was one of them said it was as exciting as their wedding day. Because they got to do all the stuff, like go into makeup and be in this massive Studio 10. It's in Media City in Salford, and it's the biggest what they call shiny floor TV show studio in Europe. Well, it's an absolutely huge deal to to go and be in one of those shows. And people on the panel, it was I think it was Gareth Malone, of course, Shaka Khan, who did not know where she was. She did honestly no idea what she was doing. She did not know what the television show was at all.
No, of course not.
In some unit in Salford. I love that. I love that image of her.
But it was sort of great because every time she was asked to chip in to comment on the choir, you knew none of it would make the edit. You were just like, you don't know what you're talking about.
No. I love that because all these like recording studios and big music rehearsal spaces, they're all in places like Harlesden or like some horrible place. Nothing wrong with that. Harlesden is rubbish. I'm going to double down on that. But it's so funny, you think of these rock stars and they're all just hanging around in these industrial estates, and it's just very, very funny. It's incongruous. So with your you're doing Zoom rehearsals, how does that work with things like latency and all that? Probably because the software is not quite there, is it?
No, it's not there.
And you found a way around it.
We had a very hilarious first rehearsal where we tried to sing together, and we tried all the platforms. We tried Zoom, Skype, Google Hangout. Like we tried all the different ones. It isn't possible, and it was bless us for thinking that it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, we all went through that process.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Absolutely.
And what we've done is we've actually, as a group, we've made, those split screen videos that everyone's doing. They are quite a nice way of feeling like you're still in something. So we made a split screen video of a piece that we'd been rehearsing in the real world just before. So that's come out really well because people can remember how that sounded like singing together. And so what we've done for the rehearsals is that everybody goes on mute. I play the piano, and people sing along to a warm-up. Now, they can only hear me and the piano, but they're singing along. So there's a sense of community that we're still singing together. They can't hear each other. They can only hear themselves and me.
Yeah.
And then I've made MIDI tracks of all the harmonies. And basically, via Zoom, I play the MIDI track and they sing along to their individual harmony.
Brilliant.
And then we
Great.
sort of put it together. And that's really just everyone singing along to a MIDI file of all the parts so that they feel like what their part does in amongst the parts. And we've made 3 videos. We're recording the third one, and we've decided to bring in people that have left and moved to other countries. So we're now a sort of 25-piece group, including people that can no longer sing with us because when we were based in London, they don't live there anymore. So it's kind of it's actually created a positive experience, I think, bringing people back into a group that had to leave.
God, that's really good. And it's so good you've stuck with it and come up with this, because people like dropping like flies after first few attempts, like, sod this. But good on you.
Yeah, I think it's making something that helps, even though those videos are, I think we've got a bit of fatigue, haven't we, with seeing those split screen videos. But then if you think about it, these are people who aren't musicians. I think that musicians and performers have got fatigue of looking at those split screen musician videos, but actually I think ordinary people haven't, and it's nice for them to see people that they know doing these things.
You've got a new musical, haven't you, that has been recorded, and that was literally surely just before we went into lockdown. You were going to be premiering it, is that right?
Yeah, so it was meant to have its big album launch on the 27th of March with a big concert at there's a sort of musical theatre conference called BEAM, which is this sort of breeding ground for new British musicals, and it's got lots of Arts Council funding, because what tends to happen in this country is that the West End is full of new musicals, but very, very few of them are from British writers. We basically bring all the successful Broadway shows over. And what Broadway has is Broadway has a feeding ground that we don't have. So Broadway has off-Broadway and off-Broadway, and that's to do with number of seats.
Yeah.
So Broadway is, I think, above 1,000 seats. Off Broadway is 500 to 1,000, and off Broadway is under 500. And if you think that Hamilton started off Broadway, these musicals are going through that system and then coming over here. But we don't have that system. We have a sort of ragtag fringe system that doesn't really see any. We have fringe shows, and they're very, very separate to West End shows. We don't actually see them go through that process. And this thing, there's various organisations called Mercury Musicals and BEAM, which are trying to stop that. And I got a commission from the Royal and Derngate in Northampton, and they've been given some funding for, I think, 5 years to try and be the feeder for these musicals. And the Royal and Derngate is quite a big theatre in Northampton. And so I got commissioned to write a show, which luckily was always going to start digitally. That was always the plan. It would start with a concept album and some videos. And luckily, the only thing that we've lost is the concert. So we still had all the digital stuff ready to go. I mean, I think it would have been quite heartbreaking for me, actually, if we'd have had a run that didn't go ahead, a long run, because there must be so many, because it would be my debut, and there's so many writers, first-time writers, having lost their opportunity to put their work on for the first time at the moment. And will they get back on after this? And I think that's hard, because I think theatres won't be able to take risks. So I think that I think people that were just getting their foot onto the bottom rung of the ladder in theatre in terms of writing will find it very hard to get back on. I think, not to be all doom and gloom about this, but I think we can be really tough to get new writing remounted in the spots that it would. But hopefully the idea is that this concert is going to get remounted. On a positive note, the theatre were one of the only people out of I had loads of cancellations when it all first came out, and that theatre were one of the only people to pay a cancellation fee. So all the artists involved involved in that concert have been paid half their fee, which actually is which hopefully, fingers crossed, it means that everyone will want to do it. When we do get to do it again, even though it won't be a launch concert.
Did you approach them with the idea, or did they say to you, "Oh, could you write us a musical? Do you have any ideas?"
It's quite strange. So I noticed that they'd had this funding. So the first thing, this is about maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, they announced they had this funding, and their artistic director put something on Twitter, and so I just DM'd him and went, "Hello, can I have a meeting, please?" Pretty much. And then he went, "Yeah, of course, let's have a meeting." And so I didn't have any ideas. I never do. I get these meetings and then I go, oh shit!
Oh my god!
And it becomes like Alan Partridge monkey tennis. I do it all the time.
So what happens? Do you just magically come up with the thing in the meeting?
Yeah.
Zoological Society?
Well, actually, what we had this meeting and it was probably quite clear that I had no solid ideas. And he sort of said, look, we have got money for full musicals, but I think you're probably in a position not to have that yet. We got this digital commission, which is a sort of entry level onto this, which if that goes well, we'll then commission a full musical. So I got this digital commission, which was a complete blank canvas. So I got the commission with no ideas.
Wow.
God, that's amazing. / daunting.
It was daunting. All the brief was that it had to. The brief changed as these things do, but the brief was originally going to be 12 standalone videos,
right?
And that was it. Sort of a bit lo-fi. And then I started to write the songs, and they commissioned me to write 3 songs to start with. I wrote the 3 songs, which they absolutely loved, and I came up with the idea of the zoo, because on my wall were all these post-it notes of why would you want to see 12 standalone videos? And you'd want to feel like you saw a cross-section of society. So ideas that I came up with were the same living room over 120 years, and you came into the living room once a decade, or every living room in one street. I just had I wanted to find out, how what these 12 situations would be. And then I randomly wrote on the wall dogs, and then I put in brackets like cats, but from the point of view of dogs. No, it wasn't that. No, it was humans. That was it. Humans. Humans like cats from the point of view of dogs. That was something like that.
Yes.
And then it evolved into, why don't we? I want to hear what animals make of humans, and what they make of being watched and looked at, and that's when it came up. And I wanted to then sort of use different animals and different types of animals as to shine a light on different parts of society, and that's where it came up. And then after the 3 songs got commissioned, the project then changed. They went, right, it's clear that we should commission a full musical, so they commissioned the full script as well as the videos. Fantastic.
So you've written the full book as well?
Yeah.
In collaboration with Katie Mulgrew.
Yeah, so Katie came on because we'd written a musical together at the same time as this called Southbound, which I'm sad that no one's really picked up yet because it's fucking mad. It's a crazy musical.
Oh, I saw the workshop you did in the other palace. How much of the show was that? Sort of
that was half. It was Act 1. So Southbound is a different musical set in a abandoned service station.
Yeah,
you got to write what you know. I've been a gigging comedian for a decade. The only thing I really know anything about is service stations.
So immediately I'm thinking of Fleet. Fleet is in my mind.
It's actually M6. It's actually based on Stafford services.
Okay.
Because, and this is so niche, it's unreal, is that they're different brands either side of the motorway. So one is a road chef and one is a moto. So normally you get the same brand either side of the motorway, but actually Stafford services northbound and southbound are quite different because they're different brands. And so if you go on ratemyservices.com or whatever it is, Southbound's only got 2 stars and Northbound's got 4 stars. So there's obviously a superior service station. And so that's the premise really for this
That's fantastic.
Musical. It's a great premise. Literally, every time I go in a service station now, I do think about that musical. I think, this would be a good one. Fleet is a good one because it's got a lot of the woods area outside. It's very it's very nice, isn't it? They've redone it.
It is nice. They've done up that bridge, haven't they? I know it's called the Scott Mills Bridge now, isn't it?
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They have a plaque and everything. I love it. They should really do that for you up at Stafford, though. Like, come on. That's what you can aim towards.
I just don't... on a serious note, though, I wanted to write a musical for loads of funny women. So it's written for 9 women and 1 guy. And the women... what happens in musicals is that women get parts, funny parts, and they're all the same age and they're all the same type of character.
Yeah.
So, like, in Oklahoma, it's always like... the busty friend, and that's what happens across all musicals. And that's really it. It's like you get this kind of kooky, and that's it. It's just this one note. I'm a bit thick, so I'll sing a funny song because I'm a bit thick. And so we wanted to write better rounded, funny female characters. And so we wrote 9 of them from age 19, and the eldest cast member when we did it, the other Palace, was I think 72. And it's set in a future where, which probably is plausible now. It's set in a future that's gone feral. Society's gone feral, and people this community of women have to live in an abandoned service station. So one of them they had to fight, but one of them got the Waitrose, and another one lives in the WH Smith.
That's excellent. So were you working on those 2 projects at the same time, or did they overlap at all?
They did, and there was a pretty horrendous few months because, as with all these things, I had so much time to write both of these things. And then I decided to do all the writing simultaneously whilst I was in pantomime in Worthing. God. So I was doing 12 shows a week in Panto in Worthing, and they set me up a writing room in an abandoned lighting booth. And I went between shows, and I took my widescreen monitor, I took my little keyboard, I took all my stuff, and I sat and I wrote. I had to write a song a day. Across doing 2 shows. So I was playing Abanazar in this panto. So I just go in my Abanazar outfit with the beard painted on, and just go and sit in this lighting booth. And I wrote, and I alternated between shows, between writing the songs.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. That's immense.
And I thought back to the time in the summer when I had loads of time and I was defrosting the freezer, and I was really cross.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. It's necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't do it without deadlines. I can't.
No. I mean, that's insane. That is real heightened deadline, isn't it? You've left yourself like 1 day per song.
Yeah.
But
I did it.
Yeah.
So you did it.
Yes.
So that's really interesting. Like, so every new day, new song, was it like a complete blank canvas for each day, or did you have a few ideas you'd penciled out?
Yeah,
how did it
I
work?
pretty much knew for the Zoological Society. I knew what the songs, like what characters and what the songs were going to be about. So, for instance, I knew that I wanted to write a song about pandas struggling to conceive, and I knew that it wanted to be funny, but I also knew that I wanted it to have an underlying message that was, if we don't manage it, we're still as human, we're still as whole a people.
Yes.
If we don't achieve this, I just know. I mean, I'm in my mid to late 30s, non-specific, but I have lots of friends that are going through that. Lots of friends that are struggling, and I wanted to try and put that big, it's a big topic, and you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I could write a sincere song about people struggling to conceive, but by putting it through the voices of 2 pandas, who it's amusing because they're only fertile for 24 hours a year, which is why they struggle to conceive in captivity, and also proportionately, a male panda is very small in the downstairs department, and which is why that's why they struggle. And so sort of combining those 2 topics, I thought I might hit on something. So I already knew like what I was gonna. Like, that's what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah. So at that point, had you already written the book?
No, I'd written an outline of where these 11 songs. I didn't know where the other songs were going. And once I'd written these 11 songs, me and Katie Katie lives in Manchester, and we put all the Post-it notes on the floor, and we filled in the gaps, and then worked out what other, because I've written all the other songs now. I've written 12 more songs that aren't on this concept album, and we worked out where the gaps were. And there's one character that doesn't feature at all in the concept album, who sort of winds the show together. So if you know all the songs from the concept album, there are still 12 more songs and an entire other character that you don't know. So it's not like...
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, well, I always know that would be the case as well. So I wanted it to still be... something that was... You didn't feel like you knew everything. So there's some more pieces of the puzzle if you go and see it on stage.
When you were putting together the concept album, did you have in mind casting as you were writing, or did you come to the characters first? Yeah, you didn't have half an eye thinking who might play these characters.
Yes and no. So there are some people that I knew would say yes. So.
Right.
Like I knew Natasha Barnes would sing a duet with me, and I knew that Trevor Dion Nicholas, because Trevor and I have presented the What's on Stage Awards together. He was the genie in Aladdin, and he's George Washington in Hamilton, and I knew
that's right.
There were just certain people that I knew would be game for it, and would also bend over backwards to help out. And then there were some other people that I thought, go on, if I ask, I bet they'd say yes. So that's like Jason Manford. So I asked Jason, he was like, only because it's you, Vikki. I was like, okay, good, thank you. Because also we didn't pay them a lot at all. So it was very much favours. And the one that took the most wrangling but got there in the end was Sharon D. Clark.
I love her.
She's so good.
So great.
And she did it in 2 takes and then just showed us some pictures on her iPad for the rest of the session.
Amazing.
Yeah, like we had, like her cab was booked for the end of the hour and she'd done it in 15 minutes and we just felt bad because we was like, we don't need to ask Sharon D. Clark to sing this again because we have it. We actively have it. So while she was waiting for a taxi, she just showed us her holiday photos. Sharon's married to Susie McKenna, who directed Southbound.
Did she?
Yes.
Right.
And so there was lots of, come on, Susie, make your wife say yes.
Yeah, yes.
Which is how these things work.
Yeah.
Because Sharon's agent was like, no. And I was like, Susie, you know how Sharon's agent has said no? Could you make Sharon say yes, please?
And also, did you know that you would always be able to have an orchestra play on the album?
Yeah, well, that was, and I hope they don't listen to this, but in a meeting, we had a meeting for it, and they went, so how many musicians do you want? And I just said the number 10. I just picked it out my arse. I just went 10. And then,
do you wish you'd said more?
No. 10 was a lot, actually.
10 is a lot.
10 is a lot. 10 is a lot.
That is a lot.
And I always knew it would be the London Musical Theatre Orchestra. I have worked with those guys loads, and I really know and trust them extremely well. So they, Simon Nathan is fast becoming my absolute go-to orchestrator. I don't think I'd use anyone else at all unless he wasn't available. And because he orchestrated I wrote a piece called The Concerto for Comedian and Orchestra, which premiered in 2017, and Simon helped me orchestrate that. And what I tend to do is that I tend to write, he finds it really annoying, but I write in Logic and I write it full. So I like to use all the sounds, and I don't write in Sibelius, I write in Logic and I orchestrate it as I go. And then he takes this absolute fucking mess and turns it into something that people can play, because he's like, you know, on your Logic file you've got a flute playing a melody, and what you've got underneath that is 26 other musicians. You know that you won't hear that, Vikki. And I'm like, well, I just turned it up, didn't I? So he solves things like that, and he did lots of clever stuff with the 10 musicians and divided the recording session, which is where their expertise totally came into it, is that once I handed it over, I'd written it for kind of more than 10, and I like to write for outrageous things like harps and celestes and all the rest of it. And so he managed to make it work. His brain is so amazing that he made it work so that we could have, I think in the end it was about 14 or 15 different musicians, but each in groups of 10. So we'd record certain songs with certain instruments and then let some people go and then have some people in another session. It was amazing. Which I would never, I don't have the skills to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds fantastic, the orchestrations. I don't think there's any sort of synthetic instruments at all on it. Is it all done? Are there any samples of
there's
strings?
One. There is a synthetic marimba in a song called I Don't Know What You Want From Me, because so Rick, my other half, is playing the drums on it. Obviously that would be quite rude to get somebody else in, and we didn't have that was the one where we didn't have enough people, and we decided that actually I think synthetic marimba is one of those. I think mallets sound fine, actually.
Yeah, they're fine.
I think they are, and so that's the only one. That's the only song with. And I think there's a bit of. I think the guy playing the the guy doing the mixing did a bit of shaker somewhere, and I did some tap dancing, but with my hands on a wooden board.
Oh,
is that what they do when they have tap dancing?
No, they get people to tap, but I tried tapping because I was like, I can tap, and then I realised I've not tapped since 1996. It was absolutely fucking shit. We've got a recording session specifically for tap, and it's just me. We haven't got a tapper. So then I put the tap shoes on my hands and then did the rhythm that I wanted.
So that bit is just you, is it?
The tapping in it is just me, and we layer it.
Multi-track.
Multi-track my hands tap.
Wow.
I'm just glad that nobody filmed me literally on my hands and knees in a studio on a board, because I told some lies that I could tap dance. So there's a song called I Don't Know What You Want From Me, which is a sort of piss take sound of The Lion King.
Right.
And so I knew I wanted that, hence like the marimba and stuff like that. So I knew I wanted to achieve that. And then there's another one, One Day a Year, which is the Panda song. I wanted that to feel quite Motown-y. So
yeah.
And it was quite interesting in the orchestration process. Towards the end, I put less in. All the ones from the beginning are really fully orchestrated for me in Logic, and then eventually I'd send ones that didn't have much in at all. And Simon was so excited about that because he actually got to do some proper orchestration rather than just going through my MIDI mess. That sounds wrong.
So he probably would prefer it if it was just a piano.
Yes. He would prefer it. He would prefer it was just piano and vocal. But I just don't write like that. I can because the thing is I can hear I can hear the other parts. I want to write them down. And yeah, it's funny. There's lots of, like, they'd often, so between him and Freddie Tapner, the MD of the London Musical Theatre Orchestra, we had many multi-way phone calls where we'd all sit on pianos on these calls. This is before Zoom. We should have done it on Zoom, but we didn't. We just did it on audio three-way calls. And they'd play like crunchy chords going, Vikki, did you mean this? And the answer was always yes. And I just don't know why. I don't know why they just constantly would pick it thing going, you sure about this? Yes, I'm sure about it. That's what composing is.
I noticed of your writing, I think things like we're going to get very technical here, okay. A minor fourth chord in a major sequence.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
It's exactly that.
Has a sort of, it's a melancholy, isn't it? It's that. It's funny, your ability to write very memorable tunes, and Southbound, so I saw that, but obviously I've heard that music once, and there's no recording of it as far as I'm aware, but the very first bit they sing, I think that's in there, isn't it? Is it "And It All Just Stopped"? Is that right?
Yes.
Have I got that right? How have I remembered that? Yeah, and it's a little melancholy little chord sequence, and what I want to know is, how do I still remember that over a year on? What's your secret to writing catchy, memorable music?
I think the song from that show that's most catchy is a song called "Lucky," and the melody goes "Lucky, da 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 da, lucky, da 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 da, lucky," and there's different stuff in between, and that came from I wanted to find a word that's quite poignant, and then when you swap it for the comedic version, it's fucking ridiculous. So I swap this poignant, like, we're basically lucky to be alive, and I wrote that because of the rhythm of the word lucky. Da-dum, lucky. Yeah. Like, that's sort of the pitch of it as well. So you don't feel like, you can feel like you're quite speech singing that. So the melody goes, lucky, I am really lucky, and it's a great day to be lucky, to just still be alive. And then they go through, this is from Southbound, they go through this and they go through the Record's Best, the song, singing lucky, and then it comes to the comedic part, and it goes, we just want one thing, what we'd ask for semen. What we need is semen. Like, there's no men in this world. And so immediately you've got the same sort of poignancy and rhythm, semen, lucky. You've got the same rhythm there. But immediately you've got these women singing earnestly what in a normal musical would just be another repeat of this earnest piece. That's why I generally tend to write about what I want to achieve. Like, what do I want people to feel in the songs, and that's what I wanted. I wanted people to feel like emotionally connected to the point where they
Yeah.
have to laugh out loud because it's so fucking ridiculous.
Yes.
You don't expect 70-year-old women to sing that, do you?
But it's great. It works because it's funny, but it's also really dramatic. It's the one thing that the human race needs.
It is the one thing that the human race needs.
And again, to get technical here, so that the two notes you're using there, the third and the fifth, right? That's a common thing to use to create a memorable melody. Is that? Are you aware of this?
I wasn't aware of that. No.
It's known as the Millennial whoop, I believe.
Well, there we go.
Oh, is
And you
it?
get it in a lot of pop songs have that that kind of thing. It's going, and there's something about that. So I guess you've just written that kind of thing.
That kind of thing.
What did you say it's called? The Millennial Whoop.
Millennial Whoop is called.
That's an
Really?
excellent.
Well, it's been
phrase.
coined, but it's nice that you've written that. Not sort of
Not knowingly.
I will now.
no, well, not knowingly, not as a trick.
Yeah.
You've just,
I'm going to use it as a trick
but
now.
you will now, yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you tend to write with the lyrics first and then the chords, or is it always different? Or
It's always a bit of both. So I'm writing something right now, again, sort of pitching for stuff. I've brought together a few theatre companies to pitch for some digital theatre money that's around. And so the idea that we're doing is we're pitching for a musical to be serialised over a podcast. It's becoming a thing. Americans are doing it. We're not really doing it yet. And I write bollocks down in the pitch, which then you have to try and make real. And I wanted this to be stylistically quite banging, it's characters that you wouldn't expect to sing banging tunes. So it's also quite feminist. So that's I wanted it to feel like it was big and like something that you would definitely hear not in a musical. So I wanted to find the first process is finding what those sounds are. Basically, me going through Logic and just playing like each synth sound, going that, not that one, not that one, until I find a synth that I like. And then a line that I liked was a line called "It's Not Becoming of a Lady," and then the song has evolved to be about what does that mean? So I've sort of taken and so I don't know whether it's called that yet, but that was the. Finding some sounds, finding a phrase.
Yes.
And what I tend to do then is that I actually I like to listen to different music and run and walk and then stop and write things and sing into my voice memos when I have ideas. Yeah. I quite like to not there's something about coming up with some ideas and then going out and going in that's why being stuck at home is quite tricky because I find that I'll sing into my phone in the supermarket and stuff like that. Stuff doesn't necessarily.
I like when on voice memos, so it tells you the exact address that you're at when you're recording these things. Doesn't it? If you're on an iPhone.
Yes, mine is a sea of M1, M6 because I'm constantly in the car.
It's where you get your inspiration.
I am. I'm driving and I'm pressing voice memo and I'm quickly singing something. Singing something into the phone.
Yeah.
I like that with photos as well. When you take your photo, there's been many an evening on a tour bus or something where you'll see a progression of drunkenness through a country. I love that on the map where it's mapping out. Oh God, I was really bad by Bremen. Oh. When you crossed over and started doing stand-up, how did you find it as a woman going into stand-up? And apologies if you've been asked this like a million times, but I'm just really interested. Did you feel like you were on a level playing field, or did you feel like you had to prove yourself more? It was harder to be accepted or sort of taken seriously as a female comic, especially a musical one?
It all kind of came about by accident because I trained in musical theatre and I got an agent, came out, started to do auditions and was auditioning stuff. I was 19, 20 years old, auditioning for stuff like Madame Thénardier and Les Mis. I'm not going to get that at 19 or 20. So I was actually going for these comedic roles and I hadn't really considered comedy. But but in musical theatre, you're kind of put into boxes. And I was never in the leading lady box, which I think stuff has changed now. I think the world has changed that you're not actually compartmentalised as much as we were. It's 15 years ago now. And so I was very much like, that's your casting. So I sort of I then started to realise that it wasn't. So I was singing funny songs. I was singing all the character songs from musicals. And I couldn't get a job, and it drove me up the wall. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be the person. I'm not going to be someone that sits here and just waits. So I started writing funny songs. And then I saw an advert in The Stage, which is back in the day when that's how people got jobs. You know, you'd see an advert in the flipping Stage.
Yeah.
So I saw an advert in The Stage for an American TV show called Last Comic Standing that was auditioning. And about 6 weeks before, I'd done a stand-up course at the Actors Centre, and I'd written a couple of songs, and I turned up to this open audition for Last Comic Standing, and it's like X Factor for comedians, but it's only an American show, and they only ever came the once to the UK. So I stood in the queue outside the Comedy Store, and I did my song. I did my song, and I got through, and I ended up on the telly, and it was my 10th stand-up gig.
God, that's brilliant.
Yeah, but it was very strange, because then I suddenly met all these comics that were quite sort of higher up the ladder, and so and I think there's something as well about being musical, is that I did the journey from open spot to headliner quite quickly, because I already had the performance skills, and music's better at the end.
Yeah,
and if you can book a female headliner, people do now, and so I think I sort of went through that system. I went through that system quicker than I would have done if I hadn't already got those skills, or I wasn't doing music.
Oh, that's great. That's great that you negotiated that way. And actually, maybe it's a slightly out of date thing to think that it is so imbalanced. Perhaps that, like you were saying, they often will book a female headliner now. So I mean, maybe times have moved on. And
they have moved on. I mean, it is imbalanced in the sense that you can't have more than one, though. You never find two of you. Like I never see the other female comics, because you're very rarely on a bill with another woman.
Right.
And I did.
It's like tuba players. They never meet each other.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard of that guy.
Tuba players, women.
Yeah. But I did just before lockdown. Just before lockdown, I did a show at the Brighton Comedia, and it was the International Women's Day, and it was Brighton Comedia is like it's quite a hard club to play. It's quite noisy. It's quite vibrant.
I've been there with a stag do.
Quite stag do, yeah. And it was International Women's Day. Lots of people hadn't booked because it was International Women's Day. They just booked the stand up, and it was for women. It was a bill entirely of women. It was brilliant from start to finish. There was no sort of, here's the woman spot, which is always the third spot. It's the easy spot. People put women in there. It was great, and it was interesting because it was International Women's Day, which meant that clubs all over the country had all female lineups, and there were still plenty of us to fill the bills. And it was the first time I've been on stage and been in a dressing room with all women, to entire career.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Oh man, how did that feel? It was
really cool. It was really nice, because you just, like, for instance, just stuff like getting changed and stuff. You can just be in a dressing room because it's just all women, and whereas it's normally just you, and you just having conversations with people that you don't really feel like you're relevant to your interests, actually.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself with less of a passion for doing those sort of club?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
gigs?
The club stand up, I'm very lucky in that I can go out and do club stand up as a sort of really as a supplement to my income. I can the scene, at least before lockdown, the scene exists that you can pick up gigs at the last minute. I would often pick up gigs with 2 or 3 days notice and go to somewhere, and it's a sort of less formal scene, actually, I think, than I would say it's a lot like a sort of grassroots music scene, but then with bands and stuff, you often haven't got these last minute gaps. But in comedy, all the time, we've got a Facebook forum as an industry where someone says, "Oh, there's a gap in Stafford this evening, 9 p.m. start. Who's free?" And it kind of works like that, and it's quite informal, so it's easy to pull yourself in and out of gigs. So if I find that as a freelancer, if I don't have much work on, or I've got some gaps, I can really fill those gaps very easily with just going out into the stand-up circuit.
That's great.
Do you find yourself in times where you've written a couple of songs and you go, "Oh, I'd love to just play this to some people, see how it goes," and then you can just book
yes
a gig?
And no. So
does that happen? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really write songs for stand-up anymore. I find it boring. I find it boring, the skill of writing a song that has to work in a stand-up environment. There's no room for pathos. There's no real room for setup either.
No.
Yeah.
They just want gags like straight away. And I think about some of the songs that I wrote early in my career, like the Brian Cox song, which has it, but that is just a series of dirty puns about science. And there's about 10 in a row, and they get huge laughs. And I just think that doesn't interest me actually anymore as a writer. I want to look at different topics, more interesting topics so that, like the song I described, Lucky, that would never work in a stand-up environment, even though there is a massive punchline, because they wouldn't give you the time and the trust to set it up like theatre does.
Later in the year, you're doing Aladdin. You're writing a pantomime.
Yes.
Is that still going ahead?
I hope so. So it's very interesting. So I'm writing Aladdin as a panto for the Lyric Hammersmith. I submitted a draft January the 20th, which now looking at that, what I've written feels completely out of date. It feels like... it feels like all of it really has to go in the bin and I have to start again. Because if we do get into the theatres to watch a pantomime, our characters have to have been through what we've all been through.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
You can't, panto is meant to be responding, is one of the quickest responding forms, I think, as well as stand-up. And,
yes.
And so me and the artistic director had a Zoom meeting, and I meant to have submitted the next draft already. And I just said, it doesn't feel like there's any point in writing another draft right now because we're still in the middle of this. And if this show goes ahead, it has to be about this. I mean, not about this in the sense that I think we'll be wanting to get out of our heads if we do get into a theatre and watch something like pantomime. But at the same time, we have to take the piss out of what we're all doing at the moment, which is Zoom calls and... like you have to bring all this new world, and if we don't, it'll feel fraudulent. I think if we put on a panto that didn't address some of the things that we've all been through, it wouldn't be right. Yeah,
it's such an ever-changing entity, isn't it? That what's going to happen next week? Who knows?
There are some practical things though. So, for instance, the designer has to really start now. The person that's designing the set has to start, and I've sort of said, well, I don't think you can start because I've got nothing to. If we do, I think we're all going to have a rush job, and I think it will be. And we've had conversations with things like we're definitely going to film it. If it goes ahead, we're definitely going to film it, mainly so that then that will go out to sort of for free to care homes or whatever. There's lots of things like that, which I think is changing theatre for the good and actually making theatre more accessible. But then there's also things that we've got to think about, which is if it does go ahead under social distancing measures, you've got to comedically address that. You've got to talk about that early doors. So it's very hard. It's very hard. None of us can guess. This is the other thing. None of us can guess. So you're sort of working on these projects that are in limbo really until we get more news. And worst case scenario is it doesn't happen, which would be horrible, but everyone's going through the same thing.
On a completely different note, I was just gonna ask you. I listened to your running commentary episode of the podcast you did with those guys this morning, and it really made me want to run again. We've all done marathons here, haven't we? And it's so great. I really want to run, but not dressed as a dog. And hats off to you. I honestly don't know how you did that.
It was an insane day. Yeah, I decided to sign up for a Guinness World Record for fastest woman in an animal suit. And I was ready and I trained for it. And I'd got this suit and I'd done a half marathon in Cambridge, did the Cambridge half marathon in the dog suit. And bless my other half, Rick, for he's a faster runner than me, but ran this half marathon with me as the dog, so sort of as my dog minder. And I was the only person in fancy dress. It wasn't like it wasn't like the marathon where there's like a man with a fridge on his back and then someone as a gorilla. But no, this was just everyone in running gear and just me, like actual bell end and a dog suit.
Oh God.
And I was ready. I'd trained, and I thought I was going to take about 8 minutes off the record. And I get there on the day, and you have to go to the special Guinness World Record signing in place. And I felt sick because there was a bloody panda going for the same record. I was livid.
God.
And there was another woman who was nearly in tears because there was 3 Snow Whites. There's this sort of weird subsection then of the marathon of people that suddenly realise they've actually got to race someone.
Oh, my God.
And you sort of see these people, and you're like, I've got to race a panda. And
were you close to her?
No, I lost her.
No.
I lost her in the first 2 miles. I was like, oh, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
And then I stopped. I stopped trying. I ended up doing it in like 4:13 or something. And I think
good
she did
effort.
it. I think she did it in like 3:28 or something ridiculous.
Disgusting.
Panda outfit.
Describe.
Yeah.
Idiot.
I know, it was just really upsetting. And I wish that they'd told you that, because there was no point in my mind that I thought that it was a possibility that somebody else would go for the same record. It didn't occur to me, and it didn't occur to any of the other people, I think, also signing up. And you spent all this time sort of training for this thing, which you then realise that you can't achieve. It was so weird.
Oh, do you think you'll do it again?
Yeah, this time I'm going to look through those records that haven't been set yet, because then you can just set one.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of fastest woman dressed as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, because you've got to have a costume that you can run in. You don't want to make it ridiculous. There was a man with an ironing board, fastest man with an ironing board. I mean, well done, mate. You've got to run the marathon with an ironing board.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Awful. I when I finished mine, I finished at the same time as someone who had a washing machine on their back.
Oh my God.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, you can watch the finishing line cam, can't you? And I saw on my finishing line cam afterwards, there was somebody who was dressed as a heart who only had a tiny bit of leg space to move, tiny paces he could do, came in just ahead of me. That's great, isn't it?
I ran it a few years before that, and me and my friend were going to run it together, and we were in the sort of the celebrity bit at the beginning, and she's quite famous, and so she realised that lots of people hire pacers. That's the thing for celebs, is that they run it with somebody that helping them to achieve a pace. And also, the more famous they are, the more pacers they have around them. So somebody will actually have a wall of 6 people running around them to stop them from being bothered. And so we met Greg James in this backstage bit, and it turns out he was going to run as fast as my friend. So she went, "Oh, do you mind if I run with Greg?" And I was like, "No, it's fine. Honestly, yeah, go on then. You run with Greg." Because she was presenting a BAFTA that evening and had to finish in a certain time to go and rehearse for presenting a BAFTA. But she did the last 3 miles in tears. I didn't. So so I ended up randomly running it. So I stood next to Lee Hendry, a footballer from the 90s, Aston Villa player. I didn't know who he was. Why would I wouldn't know an Aston Villa player from the 90s. But we ended up running the entire London Marathon together, chatting to each other. We spent the entire day just having a little chat, and it was really sweet because he got stopped by the BBC for an interview and pulled me into shot. He was like, "No, I'm running it with my mate."
Were you in dog costume?
I was in a semi-dog costume. I was just in dog ears and a painted face, but running outfits. That was my first foray into dog marathons.
I just wanted to ask you something a little bit niche, because you were at Wells Cathedral School, weren't you?
I was at Wells Cathedral School,
So was I, but much before you in the old ages. But which house were you in at Wells?
I was in Haversham House.
Oh, okay. I was in Plumptree.
What?
Yes. Such a joy.
I like Wells. They actually played my concerto. So when I wrote the Concerto for Comedian and Orchestra, I actually said, would your students be interested in playing it for a workshop for me? And they did. But because of the time of year, I wasn't allowed year 13s or year 11s, where everyone was doing A-levels and GCSE. So I sort of ended up with people I don't want to say B team, but it was a bit B team. And the result is that everyone on it was so excited to be on it because there were lots of people playing first violin, for the first time, and lots of people bumped up a bit. So you ended up, with that's my sort of person. I really, really like the energy of loads of people excited to be there because they've sort of accidentally in a bit of a better place, and it was really good. And it ended up working out that I took them to Glastonbury. And taking a busload of teenagers in convoy to Glastonbury because we had orchestral instruments. We had to come in. One of the deals was we had to get routing, like fancy routing badges, to drive right to the stage. And taking these kids right into Glastonbury, I was. It was very cool. It was very cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. I watched that gig at Glastonbury. It was like on the Sunday morning or something. Yeah. So we all sat at the back, all the bastards, and we found it very emotional. But I think we'd had a long weekend. But it was some of us were crying. But it was it was great. I mean, really impressive having a full orchestra there. Has that had any other performances since?
Yeah, it has. It's it got performed last year at King's Place with the London Musical Theatre Orchestra, and and I decided to have it professionally recorded. One of the things I couldn't do, I got Arts Council funding to help put it on, but I didn't get enough funding to pay the musicians to buy them out to release it. So I've got it professionally recorded, sat on my computer, just waiting for a point in which I can get some. I'm going to try and apply for some more funding at some point, I think, to retrospectively buy everyone out and then put it on Spotify or whatever.
I think I maybe heard you somewhere say that the idea with that was to create some sort of work like Peter and the Wolf or something that can be performed anywhere around the world with just a great narrator at the front and
and annoyingly I had a pencil for another performance with a really, really good orchestra as part of the Victoria Wood Festival in Salford this summer, and that's now gone. It's really sad. But I'm hoping that will get remounted. I'm sure it will. I hope it will. Because what's nice about that is that when you write an Edinburgh show, your show dies after a year. But whereas I've been performing this now for 3 years, and I think it's one of those things that I'll be able to keep on doing.
We're doing a Spotify playlist to accompany all the podcasts, and I was just wondering if there's anything you're listening to at the moment that's kind of inspiring you or something new for lockdown.
Well, I'm trying to write this podcast thing. So I've been trying to walk around. I've been doing long walks, listening to music that I think might be inspiring. So I've been listening to a mixture of a piece of work I think is absolutely astonishing, and the best piece of pop writing for a long time is the Billie Eilish album. I think it's amazing what she does with sounds and theatricality, like the in and out, mainly like the timbre of it. It's brilliant. And then I've also been listening to the early choral stuff of Nico Muhly. I've been listening to that this week.
Oh, right.
It's all really weird, sort of like that, stuff like trying to explain. But from a musical theatre point of view, I can write musicals that sound like musicals. I could do that all day long. But I want to try and write musicals now that sometimes don't sound like musicals. So I'm trying to make sure that my sound palette is what I want. It's as interesting as I can make it. So not that I'm ripping these people off, but I think that if you listen to things that you enjoy, you'll emulate them unconsciously.
That's Vikki. That was great. Lovely chat with her, and she's got lots of different things going on, and she's very what I like about her is she's, as I said earlier, she's sort of forged her own path in life. Started off a very similar way that how a lot of us did, playing instruments, but actually then realizing what she wanted to do, or adapting it as she goes along, and now she's writing really great stuff, which is brilliant.
I just think she's so cool. And I think maybe what comes across in this interview is that I really thought she was very cool. And every time I opened my mouth, I felt like an idiot.
No, well, so did I. So did I, actually.
I'd got some marathon nostalgia, did you? When we were talking about that, it made me actually think, oh, maybe I could have another go. What do you think?
I know. Well, yeah, I would love to. I mean, that weekend just passed us by, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it just, it's that sort of, that quality of the air and that weather is magical. I would love to do it again. I've been running a bit more, actually. I've been actively trying to run basically 5 times a week.
Oh, that's good.
So I want to try and do that, even if it's just like 2 or 3 miles some days. But I think
makes you feel so much better.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, I think if only for the mental health side of things, it really makes you feel better. It helps me anyway. And my right ankle though is a bit sore.
Oh so. No! Back to short, lots of short runs. Then that's good.
Yeah. I was looking back actually, and I was doing loads of running back in like February, and running sort of like 10 miles, 11 miles. I was able to do that, and that really feels difficult at the moment to try and do anything like that.
No, absolutely. I wonder if it's because we're at home so much, and it's just because you're not walking around so much. Like when you're trying to then go out running, it's a bit of a shock to the system. I'm hoping it's that, because otherwise there's no explanation for the fact that I am basically running backwards when I go out for long runs. So slow.
Yeah, it is weird that we're not just doing that extra sort of 2 or 3 miles. What would you call that? You just do it every day, don't you? Walking to the station and walking around town, and
don't even notice.
Retainer, that's the kind of word I was thinking of. But you kind of do it. It just keeps a good bit of activity going in your body, and otherwise you're not really doing anything. You just sat down, and then suddenly you go, "Oh, I'm going to go for a run," and then suddenly your body's going, "What the hell are you doing?"
This is awful. Yeah. Actually, with the change in the lockdown laws now, I went for my first socially distanced walk yesterday with a friend of mine. 2 meters apart all the time. We did a blimmin' long walk actually, and it was aided by a gin in a tin. 2 gins in tins, in fact. It was lovely. Went down through the marshes, went along the canals. Actually, do you know what? Not too busy and not too hard to stay 2 meters apart. Even after a few gins in a tin, I could still weave in the other direction. It was fine.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so nice you can do that now.
Yeah. Hey, as well, though, your Tchaikovsky 5 play along, that was an excellent success. I loved it.
Oh, it was so good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was so much fun. We had, how many people did we have? I think there were about 13 people.
Yeah, I think 13 with a few other floating in and out.
Some people came in at a few technical problems.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be more next week. I think it's going to hopefully build. Yeah,
what is it next week?
Next week, we had a vote on Twitter, and I thought, well, I'll give 3 options. So we had Mahler 5, Rack 2, and Sibelius 2. Was it Sibelius 2? And Mahler 5 won it.
Oh,
with
classic.
About 44% of the vote.
Well, hey.
So, so get practicing, everyone. That's
Blimey, That's
my
fingers really hurt after that Chai 5. It was a hell of a workout.
It was so great though, like looking over, because you've got a big kind of, is it a solo or just a big tutti cello bit?
It's a big tutti cello moment, but it's great.
It's so good.
It's so lush. I feel sorry for everyone else in my house who had to listen to me bashing through this part by myself, because obviously everyone else was muted and it was just the cellos, and there's some big semi-quaver run sections which sounded really spectacular.
It's funny because I can't actually hear what you sound like personally, but I can hear the cellos of the recording, and then looking at you, and you were really going for it as well, facial expressions, and it's brilliant, and also things like when everyone's going sort of full pelt, and you have that thing, because I had it was on my telly just to the side, so out of my peripheral vision I could see everyone just kind of hammering away, and it was really amazing because you forget that feeling of when everyone's doing the same thing, even if we were a few seconds out, but we couldn't really tell. That was really special. It really felt like we were playing together.
Yeah. I'm so glad there's going to be more. It's really great. Join us. It's so good.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't recommend it hard enough. Even if you're not a professional musician yourself, it doesn't matter. Get the music. Come
really
and join us.
doesn't matter.
It's just so lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like my mum did. She just put it on at 2:00. She just listened through it, and she said she was conducting in the kitchen.
Oh, what a brilliant idea.
Yeah. She wanted to come and watch the Zoom meeting as well, but I said that might be a bit weird. Just my mother in the corner just staring at us.
I don't know if you saw, but halfway through it, Rob came back from the shops and he just slid this bar of chocolate onto my music stand in front of it. It was excellent. It kept me going.
Oh, wonderful. Well, yeah, so we'll be there Friday, 2:00. We'll be doing Mile of Five. And look up on Twitter, #PlayAlongSymphony, or find me at Seb Philpott, and I'll put the details on there. And we'll retweet it as well. What else? We've got in the show notes today, I've put a link to some of Vikki's stuff as well, some great videos. There's a really funny one of her. She's got a Phillip Schofield song and she sang it on This Morning to Phillip Schofield. So that's quite funny. And also a link to a video about the Millennial Whoop if you want any further listening on that one. Because it is quite an interesting thing.
It really is. I mean, that was a good learning experience for us all. Well done.
Yeah. Why is that such a useful sort of interval in terms of creating a memorable hook? I imagine is it something to do with the pentatonic sort of scale? Because that's so universal, isn't it? The pentatonic scale.
Yeah, maybe that is. So we've always got that. Is it something to do with the way we speak as well? I don't know. I'm just fishing around for ideas here, but
I don't know. There's something to do with the harmonic series. Every object has a sort of resonance and a harmony that comes with it. So, it's a universal language. So there are just certain scales that everyone, no matter what culture you're from, just you like listening to. So something about that third and the fifth, that's nice to listen to.
It's good.
Yeah. There's something else as well I've been listening to, which is sort of related to that. Is John Hopkins has released a new track, and it's a 20-minute meditation. He's got what's the name of it? It's a singing bowl.
Yeah.
I've been actually using it to go to sleep. And it's a singing bowl, but he's also put some electronics on it as well. And within that, you can hear that harmonic series as well. And every now and again, you get a little bong, bing, bong.
Oh,
it's very soothing.
Sounds
and again,
great. I might
a very
try it in the
universal thing. Put it on.
I might do. Yeah. Perfect. Next time there's going to be a Nerf war, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'll put a link to that in the show notes and I'll stick it in the playlist. Check out the playlist if you haven't already. There's loads of stuff
going
on there
in
now.
this week.
Yeah.
Great.
What have you been listening to, Vic? What's your name?
I mean, that's charming, isn't it? How many weeks have we been working together on this? Vicky. I don't know, Stephen. I've been listening to the Fiona Apple. I've been listening to the Fiona Apple album. It's so good. I know, and we're talking about that in a future episode, so I'm not going to spoil it. But if you get a chance, go and listen to that. It's totally brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? Yeah, someone recommended it on a future podcast that's going to come out. And I've been watching. Well, I finished watching Normal People. Have you watched that? Oh, I haven't yet. No.
It's so good. And I read one of Sally Rooney's other books and I didn't really love it. So I was a bit cynical about watching it. But it's amazing. And that was my other top tip for the week.
Cool. Yeah.
Normal People.
Loads of people they've been talking about it. I think it's because everyone's been watching it. So it's one of those things where people kind of there's like a backlash immediately to it because it's so popular.
Exactly.
But I do want to watch it. I didn't realise that Lenny Abramson has directed it, or some of it. He did Room, that film,
I didn't know
which I
that
loved.
either.
He did some other things I can't remember off the top of my head now. But he was on, there's a new Kermode and Mayo TV show,
Yeah.
which I watched last night, which they filmed from their own houses. And he was a guest on that. And that's a good show to check out as well.
Yeah.
I've been watching Ozark. That's what I've been watching.
Oh, God, I've got that on my list. Good, is it?
And yeah, really good. Yeah. I've got 4 episodes left. And I've heard good things about the last bit. So
very good. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. It's lovely. It means we can keep doing these.
Yeah, it's really nice that people are listening. And I think people are.
I think they are. The numbers are good, Seb. The numbers are good.
The numbers, they're backing it up.
They speak for themselves, yeah.
They do.
Yeah, come back next week. We've got another truly excellent guest.
Yeah, we do actually. We've written it down, haven't we? We've started to plan out. Okay, we've got loads in the bank. We've got a few people. We won't spoil it now.
No. You're just going to have to wait and see.
Just have to keep waiting and just listen. Keep watching your phone, and then every Monday we'll pop up in your inbox.
Pop. Lovely.
Okay, right. I'm going to go now.
Yeah.
And have a lovely week, Verity.
And you, Seb.
Doing anything fun?
No, nothing terribly exciting. Maybe lots of running and walking and the like. How about you?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same. I'm going to try and... I didn't play the trumpet yesterday. Just sort of the day got ahead of me. But I'm going to do lots of practice. I've got to play Mahler 5 on Friday.
Oh,
so I need to do some practice.
I'll see you there then.
Yeah, see you there. See anyone that wants to play along. Honestly, just pick a percussion part. Play like that's the easy one. Find a bass drum part or something. I don't know what instruments are in there.
First violin. Take your pick.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Right. Well, have a wonderful week, everybody, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.